Hello, everyone. We're having, I think people are joining in. Farah, I think we should give maybe 2 minutes for people to join in and then we can start.
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah.
Best game or PR or something. Mobile net to contact.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I think we can start now. Today is our second session for the Mumbai Climate Action Plan consultations. Today, we're going to focus on sustainable mobility and share some of our findings from our analysis of the transport sector and invite some eminent panelists who've been working in the transport sector in Mumbai on issues of mobility. I want to, before we start, thank MCGM for opening up this space, leading this seminal kind of process of climate action planning in the city, coordinating across so many departments and agencies across the city, and really kind of bringing the environment as part of the planning process after probably the first time in the city. So really appreciate that, we're all part of this process, and I encourage you to, all of you all panelists, to sort of share openly the limitations that you identify in what we're going to share as in the opening presentation, but also broadly based on the years of work that some of you all have been doing in this space. Please feel free to share your feedback with us, and do definitely encourage you to also give us written feedback on the website. I also want to thank Vatavaran and Climate Voices for their support through this process. We're all part of this together. So yeah, with that, I'll just ask my colleague Ramya to take over and share her screen and share the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, Ramya.
Yeah. So yeah, I would like to once again thank all the panelists for joining us today, and also MCGM for championing, this entire project from the beginning. And so today I'll just be walking you through an overview of the transport sector in Mumbai, and also some, potential action areas that the city can take to shift towards sustainable transport. So coming to the overview, so as per the Ease of Living Index for 2020, Mumbai had a mobility score of 40, which was higher than a national average of 28. And, this can be attributed to its extensive public transport network, which comprises of suburban rail, metro and monorail, buses, as well as waterways. And for example, the BST undertaking operates buses, which carries about 5 million passengers per day. And the suburban railway carries about 7 million passengers per day. So because of this, a large public transport ridership, the CO2 emissions from transport is lesser in comparison to other metros like Chennai, Delhi, and Bangalore, as you can see in this graph. But then it's still, transport still accounts for 24% of total emissions from the city. And the modal share of railways collectively comes to around 45%, but they only contribute to 17% of total transport emissions. But on-road transport, contributes to a large chunk of about 80%. So this highlights the need, to shift towards alternative fuels within this sector, and also focus on transport demand management. So this slide shows it shows a 1 kilometer pedshed map of mass transit access. So you can see here that 60% of Mumbai's population, they have access to either a suburban suburban railway station, a metro station, or a monorail station within 1 kilometer. So this presents a huge opportunity for the city to shift to focus more on multimodal integration and last mile connectivity. So now we can see some of the ongoing projects that the city is already doing in this sector. So in terms of augmenting public transport, they're focusing on expanding the metro. For example, MMRDA with ADB is working on building new lines of 58 kilometers by 2024. And the BST also wants to add about 2,400 buses to its fleet by the end of next year. The city is also looking to have about 257 kilometers of exclusive bus corridors by 2034. And they also want to start a roll-on, roll-off services and water taxi services by the end of this year. They are also having some initiatives to strengthen the non-motorized transport infrastructure in the city. So for example, they are planning, designing and implementing these multimodal integration plans where they would be redesigning the station influence area of about 500 meters around the stations to basically increase the last mile connectivity for metros. And the city is also working on refurbishing arterial roads. And also WRI India has been closely working with the traffic department on various projects such as junction improvement to make it more pedestrian friendly. And they're also now working on redesigning the Bellises Road in the city. And there is also a complete street, that's happening in Lower Parel with 3 kilometers of pedestrian pathways. And they're also trying to create a community space, with street furniture and play area. And also the comprehensive mobility plan has a goal to set up 240 kilometers of cycle lanes within the next 3 years. And in terms of adopting clean fuels, the BST currently has about 109 electric buses and about 2,200 CNG buses. And they have a goal of 45% electrification of the fleet by 2023. And a study also identified that once the metro is fully complete, it has the potential to mitigate about 166,000 tons of CO2 per year. So the cities does face a few challenges in this sector, and they can be seen as areas of improvement which a city can focus on to further strengthen their efforts in making this shift towards a low carbon transport ecosystem. So the city has a good mode share for walking. So 46% of trips are actually by walk. However, this can be complemented with more safer and accessible pedestrian infrastructure. And we also saw that 60% of the population, they can walk, they are within a 1 kilometer walking distance to mass transit stations. So this again, highlights the focus, highlights the need to focus on this. The city, as we saw, has a well-established public transport network, and they can work on further strengthening, seamless trip integration and leveraging information technology. and working on increasing the quality of mass transit. And all this will not only increase the ridership of public transport, but it will also increase commuter satisfaction. So in 2018 and 19, Mumbai was actually ranked the 4th congested city in the world by the TomTom Index in terms of traffic congestion. And the city is also seeing, an increasing parking demand. So this leads to other problems like reduced safety especially for pedestrians. So it was found that 58% of fatalities in the city were actually pedestrians. And it also, reduces economic productivity. So according to the index, on an average, a driver in Mumbai spends about 172 extra hours per year just by driving through rush hour. So, this is an area where the city can focus on transport demand management and try to disincentivize private transport. So the fourth is, we already saw that 80% of emissions comes from road transport. So there is an urgent need to make the shift towards more alternative fuels. So although the city is seeing an upward trend in electric vehicles, according to primary data, only about less than 1% of total road transport fleet is actually electric at the moment. And finally, so this electrification should be coupled with a focus on renewable energy. And as of now, less than 5% of the grid in the city is electric. Is renewable energy. So to help the city make this shift towards a sustainable transport ecosystem, we have come up with a 4-pronged approach. So the first is, focusing on creating an enabling ecosystem to promote alternative fuels, as well as a focus on fuel efficiency improvements. Second is a focus on transport demand management to discourage private vehicle usage and shift towards public transport and non-motorized transport, both in the freight sector as well as the passenger sector. So the third is focusing on multimodal integration and improving last mile connectivity. And finally, looking at how to better optimize the existing transport capacities through information technology and intelligent transport systems. So finally, this is just an example of some actions that the city could take in each of these four areas. So in terms of shifting towards alternative fuels, for example, they can set up an electric vehicle cell, which is dedicated just to for research and for coming up with policies and strategies for promoting EV vehicles and, of course, supporting infrastructure. And also, electric freight should also come more into focus within these policies. And the city can also look at phasing out ICE vehicles. In terms of transport demand management, the city can look into technology-driven planning, maintenance, and operation of buses to further increase ridership and shift the mode share from private transport to public transport. And they can also look at disincentives like congestion pricing or parking levies, and further, coming up with a robust parking policy for the city. In terms of integrating, the city can look into fare integration and also having passenger information services, which would give real-time information on bus timings and bus availability. And definitely focusing on last mile connectivity is very important. So, for example, they can have an NMT cell or integrate NMT within street design guidelines. And finally, optimizing capacities. The city can focus on monitoring freight and shared vehicles to better optimize the route planning as well as the timings of these subsectors, and also regular route rationalization for buses, based on ridership data or passenger feedback can also be carried out. So I would like to stop here and open the floor for discussion. And also the website has a talk to us area where you can give us your feedback after this session. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Ramya. I just want to call upon Madhav if you want to say something quickly.
Yeah, just a few things to add. I think, we did look at Mumbai being the 4th congested city, but what we have to realize is that fourth congested city in traffic congestion, but people moving on public transport are moving at 25 kilometers an hour. Yeah, even in the peak, and that is the majority. And I think with the upcoming metros, I think as Ramya showed, there is going to be a fairly dense, high capacity public transport network. So the big focus on, walking, cycling, intermodal integration, and the real opportunity to make a big push on parking policy to be used as a like a demand management measure, and a real push to see if we can make parking as much as possible off street, public and paid. I think is also a sort of a big opportunity and then I think certain things need to be thought about. I think certain projects need to be developed in the context of reducing crowding and improving the experience around station areas, which seems to be the other big sort of more qualitative, but a deterrent towards sort of people making much more sort of extensive use of public transport. So just wanted to add these few points, but really happy to hear from all of you any feedback you have.
Thank you, Madhav. Without much delay, I want to ask Mr. Datar, Chairman of Mumbai Environmental Social Network, MESN, to share with us his feedback on the presentation and recommendations that we can include into the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to be very brief and make maybe some of them are obvious points, but some are new points. And I would like to share with you. I feel that we have been doing a lot of walking, but very little talking, a lot of talking, but very little walking. For example, in the last 2 years, the one biggest project, which is equal to all the other road projects put together and more, is the coastal road, which is completely private transport project. So I can't understand where is the walk and where is the talk. It is a completely, you can't be any worse project than coastal road project for the cause of public transport, for the cause of all the sustainable network. So I think let us not forget that. Second point, let us not forget also, there are two issues that are happening. We are now almost in the second year of COVID. We have also had, during last 2 years or 3 years, we have witnessed a number of extreme weather events. So I feel that if anybody had doubt that whether there is going to be climate change, I think that now there are no more naysayers as far as the climate change is concerned. So on one hand, we have got a COVID, which is doesn't show the sign that it is really going any part of the world, forget about India. So in that case, we should not be we can't think that COVID is going to end and we have to live post-COVID period. I think we have to be prepared to live with the COVID for years to come, and COVID are its brothers and cousins and sisters, etc. So let us not only restrict only to COVID. There will be many more climatic aspects, health aspects and all that. So I don't see any change the thinking or actually talking in the policy makers, leaders, except for the lip service for the environment. And I think it is time that we go beyond that and let us think of action now in the next 2 or 3 months or 6 months, rather than after 2-3 years. Till that time, we will have done enough damage with projects like coastal road and all that. Now, I would like to just point out focus only in one area. We have been, actually, I have sort of learned something from WRI and Embark and other organizations since 2001. And that is a bus lane or a bus rapid transit system. And I am really shocked to find out that there is almost no action that is taking place anywhere, not even study. We have got one line at Ahmedabad, we have got one line at, there was some line and abandoned in Delhi. We had one pilot lane in Mumbai in 2016. It was a spectacular success. I would not say it was just a success because it could run at BKC 130 buses per minute. I don't think anybody has achieved anywhere near this kind of performance. So I feel that what it says is that in Mumbai has a great potential for bus lane, unlike other cities, because Mumbai has a kind of a flow of people with the rapidity and speed and need. So I feel that Mumbai is ideally suited for bus lane in addition to metro. I am not saying that it is not either or. I think we need to have at the right places bus lane, right places metro. So there is no conflict between the two. So let us look at it. Why we are not adopting? Do we understand even what bus lane can do? I feel that in Mumbai, Western Express Highway is an ideal location for bus lane. Another location would be that if you consider CST to Sion, which is all full of all the long flyovers, and then the flyovers are in the center, and I think it is quite possible that we could park the cars in the center and allow the curb lanes to be used for buses. This is something really possible, but we don't even think, forget about, act about it. So I feel that it is the kind of our mindset is that we really talk of environment and act buses, act cars. And I think that let us not forget that we are basically car-oriented civilization, and we believe that in such a crowded situation like Mumbai congestion, we still believe that cars is the only way. We have to keep on growing cars at the rate of 10 or 12%. We need to have something 4 lakh cars out of 11 lakh cars are parked on the road 24 hours on both sides and completely free. So all these are the kind of things we are not really addressing. And bus lane is one of them. I feel, for example, bus lane has virtually, you can have at least one bus per lane, one bus per minute. Most likely it can go, as we have shown already, that you can easily have 2 buses per minute. Then once you have got that, it is investment wise, it is one of the lowest per million passenger or lowest per kilometer. It is lowest is not the word. It is something 1/20th, 1/40th. So it is entire bus lane project in Mumbai in one lane. It is equivalent to only one station of metro. It is so ridiculously small. But I don't think we should go by the smallness or largeness. We have to go by effectiveness. And I feel that that is where a one lane bus, as we have seen ourselves, that it can carry up to 5,000 to 6,000 people per hour. Whereas other 2 lanes, which were doing comfortably as the same 3-lane road it was in BKC, they were doing barely 2,500 and there was no traffic jam. So I feel that there will be traffic jam. I'm not saying that, but it really showed that it is quite possible that bus lane is sustainable even for motorists. It is not only, it is not like us versus.
I request you to conclude in half a minute if possible.
Sure. So I feel that it is bus lane is something which is a low cost, and low cost is not only for best or municipality, but it is low cost for the passenger. Let us not forget, metro will cost no less than 3 to 4 rupees per kilometer. Buses cost 1 rupee per kilometer, and suburban railways, they cost 22 paisa per kilometer. So do we expect all the 22 paisa walas will travel from suburban railway to metro? I think we should think, who are these people? I think most of the people who travel by metro in a second class crowd, they are all who pay 22 paisa per kilometer on pass basis. So let us also look at it. Who is going to use metro, and who is going to, can we not manage bus at least 1 rupee per kilometer?
Yes.
Thank you. I think this is.
Thank you so much. These are really great, great feedback, and we'll definitely incorporate this. I want to now invite Zohra Mutabanna. She's a senior urban planner, associate with the IBI group, to talk about the importance of a transit-oriented development strategy and the importance of land use and transport in Mumbai. Zohra?
Hi. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me here. It's an honor to actually be able to give my opinions and add in the value that this kind of a consultation brings in. I have a few points that I noted down, and I'm just going to go through those points quickly. Hopefully we'll make that in 5 minutes. The very first point is that when we talk of transportation, we saw the slides that you also had presented. A lot of the metrics that we present in mobility and transportation is a percentage metric. How much percentage is walk mode? How much percentage is a bus mode? However, if we look at the last 10 years in Mumbai, or the last 20 years, I may say that while the population in the MCGM area has stayed stagnant, the number of trips have outgrown the population growth. And that is not a function of transportation. Like whatever we may do, if we had 100 trips before and 50% were walk trips, but now we have 200 trips and 70% is walk trips, we still are losing. So we need to also contain the trips, the number of trips that are getting kind of generated, and the number of trips that are increasing, the length of trips that are increasing is happening because people are moving farther and farther away from their workplace. And that is where the integration of transportation and land use happens. So when we make a transportation master plan, we cannot just make it about a public transport line and stations. It has to be about the entire areas that are catchment to that station. So we have to think of it as a growth strategy. We should be preparing public transport lines where we want growth to happen, and we should not be proposing transportation, a public transportation corridor where we do not want growth to happen. It's a very simple way to manage growth and to make sure that people are not encroaching places that we don't want them to encroach. Now, another aspect of this is how do we manage demand and supply? So real estate comes into this aspect. How do we enable affordability near public transport stations in a way that the people who actually are beneficiaries of public transportation can live there and can access their workplaces a little bit more easily. And then if we can manage that supply, the housing supply problem through this, we could also potentially, use TOD as a means or as an approach to address the housing issue of Mumbai. But that is taking it a little too far. I think even if we look at it in terms of transportation perspective, when we did our study on the Western Express Highway line, the line 7 of Metro, we realized that just 40% of the circle, the 800 meter or 10-minute walking circle, was within actual walkable conditions outside of a metro. So we're building a metro line, we're building amazing stations, but literally, just half of the potential people can really access the station. So what we need to do is we need to plan these areas. We need to add that as a part of our action plan. It's not just about big roads, but small roads that will actually create more impact. Small roads that are connecting things, that are, creating more connectivity. Especially in our suburban areas, in the entire area up of Bandra, we see that there is very little network interconnectedness. Most of the traffic comes and loads onto an SV road or a link road or a highway. So we need to build that interconnectedness so that the passenger dispersal happens much faster. So it's not just relying on a bus mode or a public or a metro mode, but people are able to walk faster, they are dispersing faster, they're living within walking distance of stations. They will not choose to buy a car if all this becomes that easy. And the third point that I have, so the first point is obviously how do we make compact and mixed use areas that kind of reduce road trips? How do we enable network augmentation in a way that dispersal is looked at outside of stations? And the third point is construction management. A lot of metro projects in the recent years have created a humongous amount of air pollution issues in Mumbai. So while it's amazing that it has a long-term goal, these kind of constructions will keep happening. And within our climate action plan, it is essential that we define these kind of protocols that do not allow air pollution levels to increase to this kind of a level. All of the pollution that we have in Mumbai is construction kind of related. And we saw that during our pandemic times, when construction went down, air became cleaner. And as construction kind of resumed, the pollution got higher. So this has to be integrated. It may seem like it is outside of the realm of transportation, but it ultimately is. Every time we augment the network, the infrastructure of a city, we have to look at how we are managing the construction activity that is happening. So yes, that's all I have.
Thank you, Zohra. These are great points and really in record time. Thank you. I did not have to stop you. Thanks so much. I will now want to move to Sonal Shah. She's the founder of the Urban Catalyst, who will bring in a much needed perspective on gender and inclusion in transportation and mobility planning.
Thank you, Lubaina, and thank you to BMC and WRI and Vatavaran for inviting me here. So yeah, I think we have some data being presented to us. And one of the key aspects that I think we don't have data or we don't collect data, including the CMP of Mumbai, is data disaggregated by gender, age, and income. So I think that one of the first aspects that we need to look at is to understand if about 40 to 50% of trips in Mumbai are by walking, what share of these are by women? And our own research across multiple cities in India show that women actually are a majority of pedestrians in cities. Yeah. So this means that they, if you want to retain this share, then this target group becomes really important to look at and to target. Secondly, I would also say that we also need gender, age, and income disaggregated data on the use of different modes of public transport, because we know, and there have been studies in the context of Mumbai as well, both on the use of BEST buses, the railways, and the metro rail. So when we have this baseline data, we'll be able to see how we can increase ridership for women and also other gender minorities based on these baselines. We have, I mean, there are some encouraging approaches where we are looking at MMI and first and last mile connectivity. I think there are a few things I'd like to also share on this. We know that in Mumbai, about 16% of the developed area in the island city is for roads and only about 13% in the suburbs. We are seeing an increase in augmentation of the road network. However, what we recommend is that the network connectivity can be augmented by prioritizing NMT. Yeah, so the multimodal integration plans are an opportunity to see how we improve street network connectivity by focusing on NMT. We already have many informal paths that are used by pedestrians. This might therefore need improving safety, improving dead corners, eliminating blind spots, mapping safe and unsafe spaces, so that then we improve the quality of the walking environment as well. We also read that the CMP says that it wants to propose 240 kilometers of cycle lanes. I think that, I mean, we really need to be very cautious about cycle lanes, because we know that the cycle lanes in BKC are a failure. Cycle lanes in general just do not work. We have examples from multiple cities. And so when we are looking at infrastructure, particularly city level cycling infrastructure, it is possible, especially on roads that are 24 meters and above, to propose cycle tracks, right? So I think we do need to think about a cycling network plan that looks at your arterial roads, but predominantly at around 24 meters and above. All new road projects should include minimum provisions for walking and cycling infrastructure, and especially if you're seeing arterial road network expansions, that has to become primary. The other thing, and there are two more points that I will also like to make, is as Mumbai grows, and we are seeing this with many development plans as well, that we talk about the provision of social infrastructure, clinics, primary health centers, schools, etc. We need distance-based guidelines for the location of this infrastructure, because we need to ensure that they are accessible by sustainable modes of transport. So this is going to be critical. And the last point that I'll make is around 2 points actually, transit-oriented development. the current model of TOD is, and how can we have an inclusive approach to TOD, particularly in the context of informal settlements in Mumbai, because informal settlements represent many aspects. Street network, high density, they have mixed uses. The only thing that they don't have is upgradation of the street network, security of tenure often, and provision of amenities. So we need to look at inclusive approaches of TOD, otherwise redevelopment approaches are likely to push people to the peripheries, right? And to a large extent, the sustainable modes of transport that are that we seem to quote are because of this income group, if you will. The last piece is a lot of the street design that we are seeing is representing itself as a conflict, often between street vending and on-street parking. Yeah, often in the street design process, when you look at the before condition and when you look at the redesigned street vendors often tend to get I don't know, not provided for, evicted, relocated, etc. Just kind of also talking about this trade-off between street vending and parking. One ECS, 12.5 square kilometer, 12.5 square meters can provide space for at least 3 livelihoods. One ECS can cater to 3-person trips, whereas if repurposed for street vending, it can cater to 20 to 30 persons per day. One ECS is a dead inactive space for 4 to 6 hours in a day, which could be an active space creating safer streets as well. So with that, I'll just present my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sonal. Now we move to Mr. Antony Samy, co-convener of Aamchi Mumbai Aamchi Best, who will speak about their recommendations for BEST and public buses in Mumbai. Mr. Samy?
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. We cannot see your video though.
My video has gone off. Okay.
Okay.
I will talk. I am not co-convener of Aamchi Mumbai Aamchi Best.
Okay.
Mr. Vidyadhar Date is the convener of Aamchi Mumbai Aamchi Best. And as I am just participating to convey certain opinions about Aamchi Mumbai's understanding of public transport priority. If the priority is set as a public transport bus system, then everything else should change. Meaning the parking, the bus stations, the bus frequency. In terms of people commuting every day for work is our cause, our argument. Our argument is people need to reach different locations for their work and livelihood. And if that is a priority, and if they are the majority in the city, and if they are to be made easy to commute, then in that case, it is a cost reduction, facility increase, and also the bus stations, which are definitely bus stations. The bus station is something now is just for namesake, there are bus stations. The bus stations are not free for the passengers to board the bus, get down from the bus. So it is given least priority, bus stations and public transport, and increasing the number of buses has to be made as a priority. In that, the mini buses have no place in long routes. Long route buses have to carry the major segment of people who want to travel long distance. They cannot be secondary to the mini buses which are running in short distances. You can't give away the space which was there for long distance buses in Mumbai to private operators which for short routes and make a congestion. And this is also disturbing the regular life of people who can plan their trips to various long distant places for work. This is the main thing I wanted to place it for the discussion, because prioritizing the public who travel, who will choose to travel by bus, and their bus stations and their bus frequencies, and the size of the long route buses. I just leave it at this.
Great, thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Shashank Rao, from who's the union leader for auto rickshaws and taxis.
Yeah, hi. Overall, thank you for inviting me here. Firstly, I would like to suggest that though we are talking about Mumbai, let us also get Maharashtra into consideration, because that's also a little important. So whatever decisions that we take, we should have a broader look with the state in mind also. And when we are talking about sustainable transport system, it's very important, especially with auto rickshaws and other public transports like BST, that we also keep in mind the principle of sustainable living. Because this climate goal is good enough, but if that goal is achieved without keeping people's livelihood in mind, then it is not good that we achieve a goal of climate by not having a sustainable living environment for everyone. So that's very important here. Secondly, electric vehicles, good that they are coming in, but few pointers that I would like to tell here with time in mind. First is that we have to have a restriction on private vehicles. Till such time that we don't have restriction on private vehicles, you can't do anything in a city like Mumbai. Because if you give priority to private vehicles, it's not gonna help as much as you want to. And like Mr. Datar said, the major mistake I feel is the coastal road, because it's not gonna decongest, it's only gonna add to the congestion. Because if we remember, a lot of roads were built in Mumbai, new areas, for example, the Jogeshwari-Vikrori link road. Earlier, it was very easy to go through that road, there was no traffic. But within time, all new colonies, new settlements came across the road, and today it's a chaos on that road. So building more roads does not mean you are going to decongest the city. So we should concentrate on the public transport system. As far as auto rickshaws and taxis are concerned, today almost in only the eastern and western suburbs, there are around 2 lakh autos. And as of today, they are all on CNG. If you talk about electric autos, there are companies who are getting those in. But the question would be, how would we replace these? Because I remember somewhere down in 2018, in Philippines, it was decided that overnight they wanted electric vehicles. And all other rickshaws, a little larger version to what it runs in here today, which is like a tuk-tuk in Thailand, they decided to shut them down and move to electric vehicles. but not giving them the opportunity or financing them for the electric vehicles. Instead, they got a company who were ready to get in their electric vehicles and displace these people. So any move on those lines would be detrimental to the livelihood and would naturally disturb the socio-economic structure in the state of Maharashtra as well as in Mumbai. So that's what we need to keep in mind. And at the same time, when we are talking about electric vehicles, how far we are ready with the infrastructure is the question. Because today, it's been more than 17 years that vehicles are, especially auto rickshaws, are on CNG completely in Mumbai. And still we are struggling with CNG pumps. It's taking a lot of time for CNG filling and a lot of time is wasted. Scenario across Maharashtra is even worse. So we need to concentrate on the infrastructure. And if at all we want to move all these vehicles, auto rickshaws and taxis on electric vehicles, there should be some scheme from the government where compensations could be given and they could move on from CNG to the electric vehicles. And one more thing, I am in complete support of BRTS system. BRT system is one of the best. We have on several occasions, I have said that BRT system is one of the best systems for Mumbai, because even if one lane goes, there are many countries and many cities where they give priority to public transport. I've seen in Istanbul, I've seen in Sydney, I've seen in Melbourne, where they give priority to the public transport. No matter, even if there is only one lane for private vehicles, that does not matter too much. So even we should take an, a decision to promote and encourage public transport. Only then can we achieve the goal that we are looking for. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. That was a really important set of points. Now we'll move to Ms. Prachi Merchant, Senior Urban Planner with the Mumbai Parking Authority and in the India expert for the Indian Urban and Regional Cooperation, IURC.
Thanks, Lubaina. Thank you, WRI, MCGM, and Vatavaran for inviting me. My talk is going to be more of sharing rather than advising or consulting the team here. That's because I am within MCGM and working to set up the Mumbai Parking Authority. However, I would like to appeal each and every person out here to please share your inputs and opinions whenever you get a chance on whatever I'm going to speak. And you're welcome to look at our plans anytime later also. To talk about the Mumbai Parking Authority, it was actually mandated in the development plan of Mumbai 2034 to set up such an authority which would plan, manage and regulate parking and with a goal to make citizens and the city economy more productive by also improving the city's mobility and making parking more efficient. So with this goal in the mind, in 2018, a team was set up within MCGM's Roads and Traffic Department, where the urban planners and my colleagues, transport planners, urban designers, policy makers, are GIS technicians and experts in the team. We all came together under the chairmanship of Dr. Ramya and AMC projects. We are now setting up legally the Mumbai Parking Authority legally, which means all the functions related to parking would come under one umbrella to plan, manage, and regulate. So if I look at this goal and kind of see the commonalities between the Mumbai Climate Action Plan team that who has presented their goals today, I would look at the two issues that they have mentioned here and how they're going to kind of mitigate and adapt strategies. If I may kind of draw parallels, I would like to present the two long-term and short-term goals that we are trying to achieve here. The short-term being that how can we really manage the parking out here? If I can put some numbers in front of you, there are, although we are 12.4 million population of Mumbai with 476 square kilometer of area, we have about 3.95 million vehicles on the street with 1950 road length. So the roads are not going to increase, the vehicles are increasing. So how do we manage it? So the first aim of MCGM will have to organize the mess that we have created through the 21% that was presented in the presentation today, which consists of the private cars and the two-wheelers, majorly affecting the rest of the vehicular population, that is the public transportation. So the first would be how do I understand what I can do immediately. And the long-term goal would be with the metros in place in few years. Can we get in the proof of parking? Can we also bring in reforms like disincentivizing that was mentioned by someone in this presentation also, and hence slowly move towards curtailing the ownership of private transportation and moving toward public transportation. But first, we are looking at how do we manage this. Now, I'm just going to put across you the three major methods that we have adopted to do this. First is decentralization. You may have seen in the development plan also that we as a team of planners had adopted ward-wise planning for the DP also. You may have also seen that MCGM had adopted the same method for the COVID war rooms. Similarly, for ward parking management plan, we are looking at the 24 wards, going on each and every street, understanding the parking demand, parking gap, also understanding how the people's behavior are in terms of parking, what is the pedestrian pattern there. So if you look at the numbers again, we have almost 30 odd public parking lots by MCGM that is off-street. So our intention first is to maximize the off-street planning and then manage the on-street parking. Remember, on-street parking is inevitable. We cannot say that off-street mein sab kuch khatam ho jayega, but we have the gap is as huge as I mentioned. The 30 PPLs that we have covers about 27 ECS, equivalent car space, in front of 3.95 million vehicles. So how do we fill that gap is a major challenge for us. So the decentralization gives us an opportunity to look at a ward as a city because it is the population and the vehicles is equivalent to any other city if you may kind of compare it. We are looking at the problems at local level. So that's the first method that we are following. Second is participatory. We are trying to involve as many stakeholders as possible. So we are trying to contact each and every group that would be affected by parking, and believe me, that's a lot. So you have the vehicular kind of stakeholders, which means we have Kali Pili, Autorickshaws, Ola, Uber, two-wheelers, the riders on the Swiggy and the Zomato, buses, trucks, tempos, also the residential communities, ALMs. So we are kind of getting in touch with them and understanding what their issues are ward-wise and getting their inputs on that. And the third method that we are following is collaborative, which means we are open, and this is again an appeal to everyone. We are open to forming something called a city parking pool, which is Mumbai parking pool, inviting the government, commercial, and the residential organizations or societies to join the parking pool. I'll end it 1 second. So this CPP or Mumbai parking pool is something that is open for everyone to you, for you all to join, so that we can open up the data consolidated on a common MCGM dashboard to everyone for the mobile app developers so that it is digitized. Mind you, the liberty of ownership, the timings, and even the revenue, everything remains with the parent organization. So with that, I shall end my small talk. Thank you, Lubaina.
Thank you, Prachi. Okay, and to end this, we will now call upon Mr. Maxson Lewis. He's the managing director at Magenta ChargeGrid, who would talk about the infrastructure requirements for the EV transition that is possible in Maharashtra and Mumbai.
Sure. Hi.
Mr. Maxson?
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm audible? Lubaina, if you could confirm that.
Yes, yes, you are.
And I'm going to share 4 slides, if that's okay with your permission.
I'm sorry, we won't be able to do slides as we have a very strict no slides policy. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So for those who, I'll start with the fact that there's very little known about what's happening really in Mumbai and Maharashtra about EV charging. That's what we focus on. I'm not too sure if the team, if the panelists and also the audience will know that India's first solar-based EV charging station was installed in Mumbai. India's first EV highway, which is Mumbai-Pune highway, was again started off from Mumbai. India's first EV billing meter, when I say EV, it's electric vehicle billing meter, was installed in Mumbai. India's first residential society to have electric vehicle charging in their parking lots was again in Mumbai. And India's largest EV charging station is in Mumbai. And last but not the least, the Mumbai railways, the next time when you walk down to Datar, Parel or Baikala railway station, you're going to find an EV charger happening right here in Mumbai. And last but not the least, next time you land at the Mumbai airport, make sure that you check out the vehicles. If it's an electric vehicle out there on the air side, it's again happening right here in Mumbai. So there's lots happening, but of course, like Sunilji and other also mentioned, that's not quite enough because by definition, for every single electric vehicle on the road, you would need close to, on average, 1.5 charging stations. That's how it's said. And what we require right now is not about huge, large charging stations. What we require is simple AC charging, as they call it, slow charging formats. That's what is the need of the hour, especially in a place like Mumbai. And what are we doing about it? If you're aware of it, the ChargeGrid Player, which is a street lamp integrated EV charger, there are only 2 countries which have installed that. One of them is in Europe and the second one is in India. So while the point to make here is there's things happening on the ground, and Mumbai by itself, there's a lot of things happening on the ground in the EV space. Not enough, of course. Magenta, the company that I represent, is happy to be working. We are seen as a pioneer in this space. But what we require, the constraint in Mumbai, if everyone were to, let's say, even if, I have some numbers around here, but I'll just keep it very simple. Even if 10% of the entire transport were to move to electric vehicles, the number of charging infrastructure required will be so huge that we don't even have parking lots. So we need charging lots now where vehicles are going to stop, stand and charge for, if not hours, at least for a few minutes. So what it requires is an ecosystem view. It requires participation across multiple entities, which is the utility companies, parking, charging companies, and the transport authorities. But things are happening on the ground, and I'm happy to say that Mumbai is leading into that respect with companies like us. But happy to take more questions and discuss more as it happens in days to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Maxson. And yeah, I mean, any recommendations that you'd like to kind of add to the plan, please do share written feedback in the website. Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of on towards the end of the webinar today. I again want to thank all the panelists for these great points. I mean, these consultations are more as sort of as an opening discussion on a lot of these important issues. This has actually been great, and I just want to invite Mr. Sardar from NCGM. He's the Deputy Chief Engineer, Solid Waste Management and Transport, to give us closing points. So if you can speak there. Oh, I'll just bring my laptop. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It was nice interaction with all the panelists, especially when we stepped into the Mumbai good initiative in the sense that now we are going ahead with many verticals and coming up with the suggestions and all probable future thoughtful process. So I thank Ramya for her contribution and suggestion for the public transport, alternate fuel, and I thank Mr. Datar for his sensitive and action-initiated BRT suggestions. I thank Ms. Zohra for implementation of this street vending action plan. Mr. Shah for giving us inputs that all baseline data and ridership, gender monitoring on all that. Mr. Antony for prioritizing parking, bus station, etc. Shashank Rao for his suggestions. Prachi Merchant. Maxson Lewis, I just want to add one thing. BMC is the first municipal corporation to have their own e-vehicle and launch on the 27th. So that should add to our thing. So I thank all panelists and the participants, Ms. Lubena and her team. So it was wonderful discussion with you all. So over to Lubena for further. Thank you.
Thank you everyone again. Thank you Vataavaran and Climate Voices for all the support to make this webinar and these consultations possible. Thanks again. We can, I think, close